Our first guests tonight are two very talented actors of stage and screen. You know her from the iconic sitcom Will and Grace, and him from NBC's Parks and Recreation. They star in the animated series The Great North, which airs Sunday nights on Fox. Please welcome back to the show Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman. How are you?
Good. Hello.
The Liz and Dick of today.
Yeah. Which one is the Liz? Is my question.
That's for you guys to decide. We're not going to tell you how to live your marriage.
That's what makes it more modern. I actually love the Liz and Dick reference. I think it's so amazing. I've used Lenton Fontaine, so you tell your writer that he's on the cutting edge compared to me.
Oh, the person who wrote that's way too old to be a writer.
Did that not come from Shoemaker?
It was Shoemaker, yeah. That was absolutely a producer came up with that. That's what we call people too old to write. Now, Nick, you were actually the last time we had an audience here. You were with us. You were here on March 11th. So it is lovely to see you again, albeit under far worse circumstances.
You too. It was very strange. We were uncomfortably laughing and touching elbows.
Yeah.
I guess this is going to be a real thing.
Yeah, I feel like the last day any of us did shows, we would not look back on proudly of elbows, this will be over tomorrow. And then it was like, get out of the city. Now, you guys are back out. You're working, which is very exciting. You're doing an animated show, which I know you can do from home. That is not, of course, all you're doing. And I want to ask real quick, are you happy with the way you've been animated on this show? That's you, Nick.
I am. I mean, for anyone who's worn a flannel coat that's wool on the outside and shearling on the inside would tell you that's clearly a slimming outfit. So.
Yes.
And I look like Cher, and there's never anything bad about that.
No, absolutely. I think they both did very well by you. This is very exciting, Megan. You are going to be doing Anything Goes in London, correct?
Yes. God willing and the COVID don't rise, that's really terrible. And that's on television now, but that's fine. Yes.
Thanks,
I'm
Shoemaker.
supposed to go. Yeah, he wrote that.
Yeah.
He wrote that. I'm supposed to go over there and do Anything Goes. So it's supposed to open at the end of July, and I'm taking tap classes. I'm learning all the tap choreography, so I've been tapping my troubles away.
And now, do you do all the tap out of the house, or is Nick sort of okay? So there's no tapping in the home.
No, it's an empty dance studio, and it's me and this woman who's teaching it to me, and it's pretty fun, I have to say.
You guys met on stage. I of course knew that Nick. I knew you were doing stuff in Chicago, but you had just come out to LA, and you guys were in a play together. Was it love at first sight?
Well, we have kind of two versions of this. For me, Megan says yes. For me, it was love at first sight. But I was living in someone's dirt basement, and Megan had just finished her first 2 seasons of Will and Grace. So we were in such different places that I had crazy Prince and the Pauper, Princess and the Pea. I had a real class struggle. I had to get through 2 weeks of inoculation to sort of realize that that I was a human like Megan, because I really placed her so high on a pedestal. So I had the feelings. I was like, oh my God, am I? Are we sparking? Is this canoodling? But I was like, no, it can't be. She's like a professional actress. But eventually, it worked out.
Did he ask you for your number, Megan?
Oh, he had called. The number I put on the number I gave out to everybody on the call sheet was my fax number, because I didn't want creeps like this to have my number, So I didn't know that he'd left a message on my fax machine asking me to go out and hear this cowboy band until 2 weeks later. So for 2 weeks, he thought he'd been completely iced. But then I finally heard it, and
yeah.
It was his dulcet tones, because he really does have a good speaking voice, except when he's in character.
Did he? And did you have to sort of introduce him to the finer points of society?
Oh God! The first time we went to a restaurant, he tucked his napkin into the bib of his overalls.
Which is how it's done. That's how Jed Clampett did it on Beverly Hillbillies. Like,
And he turned out fine.
if you're working class and you end up in Los Angeles at a fancy dinner, you tuck your napkin into your collar.
You guys, you also have a podcast called In Bed with Nick and Megan. Now, I have always found you guys to be a couple that is very happy to share the innermost details of your relationship. Have you found any boundaries that you haven't wanted to cross yet, or is it the same as it always was, even in podcast form?
I mean, it's pretty full on. Because the thing is that no matter how much we say about our relationship, nobody really knows. You know? They don't know.
This is fascinating to me. Megan, you found, because you say that, and I think that's true, but you actually found old letters of your mother's. And so this is actually, you're actually finding out more than anyone, I think, most normal people ever find out about their family.
It's kind of unbelievable, really. I mean, I have found giant bins packed with letters written to my mother, like love letters written to my mother. I mean, I'm talking about like 750 letters just from guys. And then another giant bin of letters written to my father. So they saved everything. And so I have love letters written to my father, and I have all the letters from his mother and his father and his brother and sister, and I just found them. So that's what I'm doing, like full time every day, is reading these.
Were they a passionate couple, your parents?
Well, it's before they knew each other.
Gotcha.
So it's all things that were written to them before they knew each other.
That's fascinating.
It's kind of unbelievable.
It's crazy, and it's pretty also embarrassing for us in that, because this is before obviously texting, but even before you comfortably would call someone on the phone. And so this is just the correspondence of like people in their late teens and early 20s, and even the dumb ones are so like well written, and there's an erudition that's like, oh my God, this is us being like, oh my God, did you see Scooby-Doo? And these people are writing about like the war effort.
It's all wartime also, but it's very humanizing, because everybody you always think like people back then didn't have emotions like we do. Of course they did, but also there's some hot goss. I mean, the hot goss quotient is off the charts. And there's a couple of kind of like shocking, there's a letter to my father from this like real floozy, and there's this really disgusting letter that my father wrote to a guy friend and never mailed that's so gross.
Really good.
Oh my God. I mean, it's bad enough finding letters that your parents wrote, but the ones that even they knew they shouldn't send.
Totally.
They say really satisfying things like, I'm going to come see you this weekend, and we are going to get tight.
It is always a delight to lay eyes on you both. Thank you so much for making time for us, and I do hope we can do it again soon.
Thanks,
Let's
you
do
too.
Let's do it in person.
That sounds like a deal. The Great North airs Sundays on Fox.